They're not licking their chops. You see, the dumbass, and I'm sorry, but the dumbass Pentagon people don't get it. It's not a question of delivery systems. It's what a question is of what's already in this country. It's not a question of searching for nukes that might be in this country. They're strategically positioned in this country. And again, Doug, I went through the whole 9 yards after the breakup of the Soviet Union. The United States, as I said last time on your show, was the only nation that didn't ask Russia where all their pre-positioned nukes were placed in this country prior to, the breakdown and breakup of the Soviet Union, or what was seen as that. Somebody knows where they're at, and by the way, you guys, these aren't Cold War relics. These are not like the Weldon Committee. Look up Kurt Weldon and the Weldon Committee. You'll find that, good night, you'll find that the Russian general who was Boris Yeltsin's national security advisor, Alexander Lebed, testified. You can see at YouTube, Lebed, L-E-B-E-D.
Right.
I basically said that I told you the night his helicopter went down, I said he was assassinated. I was literally 1 week away from getting him on my radio program, Doug.
Oh, man. Wow. That's incredible. Yeah, now, so, Steve, you're talking about a complete and utter occupation of this country, are you not?
Absolutely, but before that, let's put the word destruction and occupation.
Why destroy something that you're going to occupy? In other words, if I'm going to go in and occupy a mansion, we'll say, in the best neighborhood of my town where I live, why would I want to destroy it first before I went in and occupied it? Why not just kill the people, drag them out, and live their life?
Well, first of all, there's a lot of ways to destroy people. First of all, Doug, neutron weapons, of which the Russians have plenty of, a neutron weapon does not destroy by a fireball, and it does not destroy by a blast wave. It destroys by intense neutron bombardment, which kills cells. And basically, you set a neutron weapon off, and everybody's dead. All the people within the blast radius of the, depending on the kilotonnage or the megatonnage of a neutron weapon. And I interviewed, when he was alive, Sam Cohen, the inventor of that. Okay. And he said, Steve, it's a perfect weapon to use because there's no destruction of stuff, just humans.
Okay. All right. So, all right, I got you. All right.
And by the way, it's a human events. Thank you, Sue. 12/28/2011, Russia Back to the Future, and it's the whole thing about the Russian bear arising. It's human events. It's 12/28/2011, so people can go and check their sources. It's amazing. I'm telling everybody, the day of talk radio entertainment is over. A bunch of firefighters, let me tell you, this is a neat compliment. A bunch of firefighters in Colorado who noticed the anomalies, they found a new accelerant in some of the fires. This is not public knowledge, so we'll make it public knowledge. And according to the firefighters, it's either phosphorus or sodium base, that adding water to it, and if you go look at, what happens, when you add water to some of these things or take the water away from some of these things, the bottom line is they're saying they found a new gelatinous accelerant that they've never seen before. And the more water they put on it, now these are firefighters, Doug, okay? And they said they have to listen to us because even they see the official party line as being BS, okay? And they're now calling your show, they're calling it Radio Free America. I thought that was kind of funny. And they're calling the shows that Hawk and I are on the same thing. They say, yeah, we got to listen to you guys to get Radio Free America. But I think that's fascinating. Men who are on, and women whose lives are on the line, battling to save people's houses, and yet no one's asking the question, how are these things starting? I've caught so much crap, even from people, well, it's just a combination of the, that's why we got eyewitnesses talking about Russian Havoc helicopters. And, oh, by the way, everyone, if 2 and 2 be 4, and 3 and 3 be 6, then, I better not go because I could make something really funny out of that whole thing. But the point being is that you better understand something. There were those fires not present. And then I put up a news story on my website. You guys probably saw it, too. Al-Qaeda encourages, their adherents to set fires in the Northwest.
Oh, they've been doing that since 2002. I mean,
yeah, they have.
This.
And I told everybody I was physically in Glacier Park when I saw the guys. I know that I saw them. And they basically, obviously, one of them was sure going to the bathroom a lot in 20 minutes in a restaurant, back and forth, and they saw me watching them, and one guy got nervous, and, and I'm just sorry, Doug, I wasn't quicker on my feet. After I left and I put two and two together, it was too late. I did call the FBI. The bottom line is that we're at a point now where, let me make this easy, a terrorist is nothing more than an employee of someone. You can have ideological terrorism, and they'll say the right political creeds, but guess what, ladies and gentlemen? Terrorists have to pay their bills, too. Someone's always paying someone. And because of the United States and our building up the Mujahideen, which then became the Al-Qaeda, and now because of all of our ties through all the world's espionage, you can hire anybody to get them to do anything if the price is right. So remember, the idea, and here's the biggest issue that we've got to get everyone to see tonight. They cannot grasp what's going on until they understand. The old world system has to go away. The God of heaven, they call them the old gods, have to give way to the new gods. Guess what that means? Jesus out, Lucifer in. Jesus out, Allah in. The point being is that when I read the scripture, you guys, I'm appalled at what is going to become and overtake this nation. Both Pastor Langford and others, where God said we have been in bondage to sin, now we're in captivity to sin. So let me tell you what that means. The Hawaiian Islands. The Hawaiian Islands, guess where the people go that they don't want on the Hawaiian Islands? They don't get to live in their marijuana plantation. I'm not making fun of any of this. I'm just saying, or whether they're pineapple or whatever they grow, or their coffee, Kona. The bottom line is that they're going to be put on ships and taken to other countries, and they're going to be slaves. The people that get to stay alive, Doug, get to be slaves. The point is that, look, the Illuminati has a plan. That's to kill off 6.5 billion people now. They wanted to kill off 90% of the world's population when it was 6 billion. Okay, so now it's close to 7 billion, or at 7 billion. The point is how do you do that? That magic three-letter word called war. But war is in heaven first. War is on earth. War is in the financial arena. War is in the home. Every day I hear of men and women fighting, men and women divorcing, kids turning their parents in. You probably have seen that story. We're seeing total war on all fronts. And Jesus, I understand. I'm not Jesus, but I understand why he wept. Seeing what would come, not just to Jerusalem being destroyed in 70 A.D., that was horrific, but looking down through the ages. Probably the thing that encouraged his heart is knowing there would be people that would accept him. But when Jesus asked the question, and I asked the Lord, here's how I pray. I say, Father, your Son asked the question, when the Lord returns, will he find faith in the earth? Based on what I see now, Lord, outside of you pouring out your Spirit and you're intervening and a select few, I don't think so. Because the problem being is that people I've warned, genetically engineered and the whole thing. Nobody else did that. It came into popular, if you will, context because I was talking about on Coast to Coast a long time ago. Nobody ever talked about it. Oh, they wrote about it in scientific journals. But when you bring this stuff out, here's what's interesting. And I really believe this is true. When we bring this stuff out, it's like a lock and a key that sets in motion those events. In other words, we're not causing them to happen, but they were sealed up by the Spirit of God for the time that they're revealed. So as the time they're being revealed, or a better word is unsealed, then the ramifications of the hidden knowledge, or that which was time-sensitive or time-stamped, then it now becomes relevant. People couldn't have understood genetic mutations, and they didn't have a very good understanding of it, let's say, 15 years ago. They sure do now. But when we're not talking about Dolly the sheep. We're not talking about, some new medical therapy. We're talking about the monsters of mythology being brought back in now. And here's the thing, Doug, that I want to share with people. When Tom Horn broke his story, or actually the scripture on the gates of hell not prevailing, in one of his books, and we did an interview. It was like at that point, the whole Stargate thing, not the movie Stargate, but the whole relevance of Stargates, because one of the words for angel, obviously, is star. The other word is messenger. So messenger gates, obviously, if you have something coming through the gate, they have a message. And what the message is mayhem. So every barrier, every boundary, every, if you will, roadblock to the powers of hell and their minions and their ilk, and then their, what I would call, bulletin board spawn, or their blog spawn. That's my new word, by the way. I call them blog spawn, okay? The bottom line is, it's just my loving embrace for them. The blog spawn, then they're now released into this realm, and so it becomes supernaturally evil. When we're talking, and Joe and you and I and Doug talked about this, why is it that the cannibal, quote-unquote, virus, why is it that they take their clothes off? And right now, I think if and I mean this literally, when I started writing the book on Breathe No Evil and all the biological experimentation that went on and was undertaken on the Tuscaloosa, Mississippi Airmen and everything else, and then the AIDS virus, and when Len Horowitz wrote his great book, Ebola Emerging Viruses, the point is I used to have Len on the show all the time. He might be a good guy to get on your show, okay? And Len is brilliant, you guys. He did his homework. He absolutely knows what he's doing. But the point that I'm trying to make on this is it seems now that they're already experimenting with a zombie virus on Afro-Americans, okay? Doesn't mean it's not going to spread to whites. This is not a racist statement. This causes me to, and I have a lot of Afro-American black, I just call them, the brethren, okay, who don't share my color. And to some people that makes me a race traitor. And I say this, I said, if I were you, I'd be more worried about the color of your heart than the color of their skin. Now, look, I understand the Black Panthers don't love me. I don't love the Black Panthers. But what I'm talking about is a common thread, a genetically altered virus that can be targeted against a specific segment. And what I'm seeing, Doug, is the same thing that went on in Africa now going on in the United States. Nobody else has said it. I'll say it. I can absolutely say that the parallels are uncanny, and I can tell you this. Here's how these guys think. And I had a very sinister man tell me this once. He said, Steve, he says, we don't really have to come up with new ways of killing people. The old ways are still effective. He said, you know why? He says, people are still stupid, and as long as they remain stupid, our efforts will succeed. And they said, you can go ahead and try and warn them. He said, because by the time you try and warn them, you'll understand. They won't listen to you. They won't believe you because they've swallowed all of our media. They've listened to us. They won't listen to you. So go ahead. In essence, burn yourself out trying to warn them. And one guy who was the head of an intelligence organization in East Germany, he called me the priest. I said, well, that's very nice, but I'm not a priest, okay? I'm not a Catholic. I'm not a, priest. But the point is that in his world, anybody who was a Christian was a priest, okay? And so the point that I'm trying to make in this little aside is that I'm seeing parallel, I'm seeing coincidental, and when I wrote the book Breathe No Evil, nobody would touch that. Laurie Garrett came out with The Coming Plague, Preston, The Hot Zone. Those were really great books. But I was a guy saying, hey, look, this is who's doing it, okay? As long as you kept in the realm of scientific academia, you could get a thing published. When you started saying, look what's going on, look at the appropriations. And oh, by the way, did anybody take on the dead scientists? Everybody steals my stuff, but nobody will acknowledge. Some do, and there have been a few faithful people. Why was it me that took this up? This isn't a defense issue. It's a issue of putting the record straight. These men and women at some point in their careers or life either were a threat to the Illuminati, the Luciferians, or it was time to cover their tracks. Because the last thing the devils at our want, they don't want anybody knowing who they are. They don't care what you do to their puppets. They don't care what you say about their puppets. But don't look up beyond the top of the stage and see who's controlling the strings. So that's where we're at, Doug. That's where we're at, Joe.
All right,
Russia,
Steve,
the bear has arisen.
Okay, now you mentioned the dead scientists. This is so important, folks. If you're not familiar with this, check Steve's site out on the dead scientists. But that began like in the Clinton administration. So, I mean, this whole, everything we're seeing right now has been carefully crafted, orchestrated. It has it not. I mean, you know, you're talking about killing scientists, killing biological scientists, you know, overtly. I mean, it's overt to the point where, you know, a guy's got 2 gunshot wounds to the back of his head, and they call it a suicide because they have to. I mean, it's just so crazy. So we are really, when you look at it, we are well into this whole process, because this has actually began 15 years ago, really, didn't it? I mean, so, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong here. Are we not past now the point of no return?
Yes, we are.
Simple
That's
answer.
not negative. It's true. Look, God said, listen, can I tell you something? When God basically washes his hands of a nation, and whether it's John Price, you've had him on your show, the daughter of Babylon, mystery Babylon, financial Babylon, I believe all of the above, just different manifestations. We're not the historic Babylon that's in Iraq, okay? We're not the Mesopotamian Babylon, but the same demons and same fallen angels, whether it's Gilgamesh, and that'll be interesting, the spirit that left Gilgamesh when he was killed. Why did the U.S. military want his sarcophagus so bad in his DNA? I carried this story on the BBC. The BBC, I just linked to this story almost, 15 years ago.
Right.
Type in Gilgamesh, and by the way, ladies and gentlemen, Google is now forbidding any searches for guns or ammunition. Don't use them as a source for your search engine. If any of you have Gmail, don't do it if you believe in the Second Amendment, because they just stopped. Did you see that, Doug? They will not allow any searches for guns, firearms, ammunition to go through their search engines anymore.
No, I didn't see that, actually. So, okay, well, that's news to me, and okay, well, that's believable. I mean, or not only believable, but that's to be expected, I should say.
Right, and so, you know, use Yahoo, Alta Vista, go, and I mean, you know, here's the thing. I was when Star Wars was a big event and behind the scenes, you know, and obviously we had Reagan doing the stuff and Danny Graham and others really and working on that. The same thing happened with scientists that were being murdered and journalists in Britain. The Marconi assassinations. You can look up dead scientists. I mean, there was a time there when there must have been at least 2 to 3 dozen scientists murdered who are working on Star Wars, okay? So that was a preemptive or a preparatory indication that what would happen in the future. Now, it's important for people to understand this. For those of us who do our homework, and I've done this for 40 years, and I'm not saying I'm a happy camper, but at least, you know, I'll go into the woods still. The point being is that we're at a period where it's all coming down. Doug, you keep asking me, I think you have and please don't take this wrong, but you would hope it would turn around, brother. It ain't going to turn around because it's designed not to turn around. It's planned obsolescence. Unfortunately, it's the United States of America.
I tell you, man, I'm a hard sell sometimes, and sometimes I can't see. You know, it's so difficult for me sometimes. Look, and I get emails too from people. Hey, you know, I just drove from Syracuse, New York to Buffalo. Everything is normal. Commerce is taking place. Everything is normal. Nothing is out of order. How can you get on the radio, Doug, and say that things are so bad? Steve, how can you have Steve come on and say things are so bad? Because everything is so normal. I have an answer for that, okay? Okay, please.
It's real simple. It's not bad for them, so therefore it's good for everyone. It only becomes bad for them when it becomes bad for them. That's called normalcy bias. We have 5 million people without power. West Virginia, the water companies. And Doug, this is the most self-centered, and I'm going to say this to whoever sent you that email. They are the most self-centered people in the universe. I had one guy that I finally blocked his email because that's the whole issue, okay? As long as it's okay for them. They are not standing in line. They cannot believe because they're in a normal mode that it will ever go to the non-normal mode. Tell that to a firefighter putting out 60, 70,000 acres. Tell that to the people whose homes have been burned. Tell that to the people that are 50 million on food stamps. Tell that to the people that have lost. And, you know, I was mocked when I said 20 to 30 million homes. That's what my friend V had told me, that the banks aren't admitting to. And he was mocked. Who is this man? You know, well, the answer is that the people that ask that, they are so myopic that they do not see the world around them. Therefore, when the world around them comes crashing down, they'll have no one. If the world's bad, look, here's what we're telling people. We're telling people that 1,000 Russian exercises are going on, that the Russian plan is for the invasion of the United States. Oh, I don't believe in Henry Gruver's vision. I don't believe. It doesn't matter, okay? What matters is up until this time in history, it has never taken place. And even the synchronicity of events and the timing of events and even the admission on mainstream TV that the international bankers control the world, maybe it's the best for us after all. Man, Alex Jones used to get beat up over that. I got beat up over that. It was always conspiracy. So when I hear the word, you're a conspiracy nut, okay, or you're a fearmonger, this is what they call me, or you're a doom preacher, or you self-fear to self-stuff, my answer to you is the same. And you're a moron, and you're going to die in your denial. And I know what it means to call names, okay, but when you implicitly assume that because life is good for you, that it can't be bad for anyone else, that is the most, if you will, prideful and arrogant position, and shame on you. Shame on you. See, that's the reason we're in this problem, is because nobody gives a damn about anybody else. They're all about themselves, and each man does that which is right in his own sight, even when it comes to rationing away others' misfortune.
Okay, Steve, I took it a little bit differently. I took it to mean that, hey, I'm looking around, I'm not seeing any
chaos, problems.
Yeah.
But Steve's right. I understand exactly what he's saying because they're not looking at the
Maybe,
bigger
Joe,
picture.
you can say it better than I can because I answered their question. It's because they don't see it in their backyard. They don't believe it can be in the next county over. Because they don't see it in their own state at this point, they don't care about Colorado on fire. Because their son wasn't slaughtered in Afghanistan, because their son wasn't beheaded and urinated on by 21 Taliban members and then being given a line of bull manure from the military and saying, you know, different things, and then it all went back to guess what? You know, I better stop here because I'm going to get into trouble if I go any further. But let's just say this.
Well,
it's
right.
because they've never lived it. They never died, or forgive me, they've never had anyone die close to them, and because of their normalcy bias. Sure, Doug, that's the same thing that we encountered. Remember, we were talking about, hey, you guys, there's a whole lot of stuff going on in Buffalo, New York, and there's some really nasty people. And wait until the goons show up at their house. Wait until their car catches fire. Wait until they've had someone who's their best friend or feigns to be their best friend betray them unto evil hands. Wait until they find out the system doesn't work for them, it works against them. Wait until they're eaten up and spit out by the machine. What I've been trying to do, and I have failed. I've had some success, but look, with someone who's on talk radio as long as I have, the one thing I cannot bridge is I cannot overcome people's selfishness, and I cannot overcome their denial. I cannot do it. So these events, you're asking me, Doug, why are all these events happening? Even the mainstream press that doesn't want to acknowledge that God is a holy God, that even exists, you know, they still have to use biblical terms because there's no other reference that they can even come up with. No, if you will, Lucifer's dictionary of redefinition, because reality still has to be related to language. So they've tried to change the language. It doesn't matter if it's ebonics. It doesn't matter if it's jive talking. It doesn't matter if it's intellectual talking. It doesn't matter. There are still words that are still containers. And dead is dead, okay? And that's what these people are. It's zombies. And can I be blunt with you? This is why I have had to do serious soul searching. And this is why a certain general friend of mine was asked, why do you want to protect those people anyway? Why do you want to? And he said, because God's called me to. And, you know, I say this to myself. I look at the mirror, believe it or not, and I go, how bloody stupid can you be to subject yourself to this kind of ridicule? What's in it for you, Steve, besides, getting upset, getting angry, or abrasive? I got to tell you something. That was my favorite term last week, Doug. You know?
Abrasive. Okay.
Yeah, I want to be a bloody burr under that person's saddle, you know, and to talk about it, you know, is just, it's insanity. But here's the thing. Sin is insanity. And when there is no power of the living God to ransom, redeem, and to set free a person from sin, they see sin as an act. They fail to acknowledge it as a power, and therefore they're powerless against the power of sin, still trying to, you know, deal with their acts of sin. You've got to lay the acts of redemption, forgiveness, and repentance to the root of evil, and if you get rid of the root of evil, the fruit of evil goes.
Right. And Steve, before I know Joe's got a couple things, but I got to tell you this. It's not like we want to be here. I mean, do you get that in your spirit? It's not like we want to do what we're doing. It's that if we look at ourselves in the mirror and we don't do what we're doing, we're letting others down, we're letting ourselves down, and more importantly, we're letting God down. Is that kind of, in a way, what's going on here?
Well, I think that's the way you would put it into your, you know, into your framework. Because number one, Doug, you're called to do it, okay? Number two, God's still pleading with people, and that's why I'm so glad that the real, and I say men of God that I look up to, that I am accountable to. So when someone comes at me and tells me they're having 41 dreams, 59 visions, and 69 angelic visitations, and they don't even know the basic scripture, and they're rewriting it through whatever doctrine or dogma they have, I just say, I don't receive it. Look, if somebody says, I don't want to receive anything you say, my question is, Doug and Joe, do you wonder why people who say, why do you guys do this, why do they listen? Well, you get beyond, well, because I have something to mock. I've heard that. Or you're cheap entertainment, you know, or whatever. But, you know, hey, I don't care. But why do they listen? You know, then shut the bloody radio off. Do you know why they can't, though? Because deep down in their heart, this isn't a natural thing. It's not just Doug Hagman, Joe Hagman, and Steve Quayle. It's the multitude of intercessors praying. It's the pleading of God's children, pleading before the throne, God, open the eyes of those who still can see, open the ears of those who still can hear. Because, ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you this, I don't know the time, I don't know the date, no more times, no more dates, I don't know that stuff. But I do know this, I do know that there comes a time when Jesus himself said the night comes when no man can work. We got people off the internet all over. You know, I saw where one brother, God bless him, it's the guy that I sent you the email about a certain former associate of yours and yep. Associate of mine, he stuck up for me. I thought, this is one of the first guys I've ever seen stick up for me publicly, and I want to thank him. But the bottom line is this, is it's not about sticking up for me or Doug or Joe, it's about sticking up for Jesus. And what in the eternal purpose of the living God do these people anticipate when they will not stand up for their Savior and they hear the words, depart from me, I never knew you. But Jesus, I was a Christian. Did you confess me before men? No, I was afraid. What did my word say about the fearful and cowards? Oh, they go into the lake of fire. Well, I didn't think it applied to me. It's not a question anymore of what you think. What do you know? And that's my answer to those people. What do they know, Doug? They can make their situation. They go to work. You know what? They suffer from normalcy bias, and because they suffer from normalcy bias, you know, they can't make how do I say this? They don't even have the perceptive skills or abilities to see what's going on with the rest of the world.
Yeah.
Hello, every municipality in the United States is flat-ass broke. Hello, there's no earning structure or jobs. Just because you got one doesn't mean 50 million people or 100 million people are unemployed. Hello. You know, see, it doesn't matter to them because the only thing they can see is the glass on the end of their nose as they look down at everybody, and their prayers will soon come to haunt them. Like the guy said, oh, I'm so glad I'm not like them. And instantly the voice of the Lord was heard, and he said, welcome to their world. And they were thrust into that world. I'm telling you this, there is no empathy, there is no love, there is no sympathy, and, you know, again, it's amazing to me. How about the veterans of the United States? Everybody waves the flag. How about the people that put the yellow ribbons on their vehicles? Do they stop and give a veteran a 50, 100? I absolutely think it's horrific that there should be any veterans homeless. And yet, how about the guys that are, I think it's close to 1 million vets, can't even get their medical care paid for due to the current administration. And then when you find out the head of the Veterans Administration really doesn't like veterans, gee, should that come as any surprise? There is no linkage between root of evil, fruit of evil. There is no linkage between righteousness and unrighteousness, because everybody who goes to church thinks, hey, I hear it all the time. I hear this more than, well, why would God judge America? We send more missionaries. I say, you want to bet? I guarantee you we send more profane than we send righteous. I guarantee you that the rest of the world says, what's happened to you, America? I get 100 emails a week from other parts of the world, no exaggeration, saying, what's happened to your nation? What's happened? What's happened? And all I say is, the pukes in the pulpit committed high treason against their God. And by the way, if everybody thinks I'm being a little harsh, I've even had people say, well, you're so harsh, you're so abrasive, you're so unloving. You know, step up into the arena, pal, and see, you know, again, look, James said, show me your works and I'll believe you have faith, but don't talk. And then I get the moron, and when I say moron, here's what my definition of moron isn't an unkind term. It's someone that will deny reality when faced with overwhelming evidence because they do not have the emotional ability to cope with their own irrelevance in their argument. Does that make a sense? So that's what I'm calling. And so I'm not trying to be unkind. Someone says, where's the love of Jesus in you? I said, it's listening, it's whispering in your ear, it's screaming in as best I know how. And look, the bottom line is, I can't tell you guys how late it is in the game. I lack the words. So the Lord says, Steve, you've got to warn people lateness of the hour, because the Bible doesn't say, oh, it'll be, a general destruction coming upon the people. He said sudden destruction. For when they say peace and safety. Look, you guys, Prince may have written the song Party Like It's 1999, but Nero will rise up to criticize this presidency, because I got news for you. There's never been a greater show of absolute contempt for the working man by those who are living higher on the hog than anybody in the history of the presidency at the people's expense. It's kind of like this. It's kind of like a vampire giving you every blood-building drug he can give you just to suck it all dry. But he leaves you one drop of blood just to say, see, I told you I was going to do it, and guess what? You voted for me.
Yeah. And what you're talking about with the people, the lack of vision, the lack of they have a prideful, conceited tunnel vision, and they, like you said, it does not affect them, or they don't care about it until it affects them. And I have family down there experiencing this, not going through good times. They obviously don't listen to the show and know to be prepared. Also, I don't know if you guys know this, but the Presbyterian Church has changed the definition of marriage as their official religion from a man and a woman to two people. And that just happened earlier middle of June. I heard that today from my mother, who we go to a Presbyterian church. And this is continuing to happen. It's a slap in the face to God, the abortions, the gay marriage, the pornographic films that are so available, the Hollywood satanic entertainment system that keeps everyone distracted. They are living in a false reality, as you said, Steve, and it is the deception, and there's no way out of it unless you're slapped in the face when you understand what somebody's telling you, the truth, and you can develop those critical thinking skills. But the thinking skills are what is lacking in the people, the lack of vision, the lack of understanding.
Well, Joe, you remember the famous statement in history? Who was it? It was either, I know who it was. It was Goering, the head of the German Luftwaffe. He said, it's a good thing for us that people don't think.
Well, that's true, yeah.
Yeah, and it's true. And see, so here's the thing, and I say here's the thing. The thing is right before us. Do you think anybody who has the word sudden in front of destruction, whether it's theirs, their family, I mean, look, most people who were making good money, prior to the markets crashing, real estate crashing, most people thought that life would go on forever, okay?
That's true.
But you can take anybody who's now living in a tent, who is living in a $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 home or more, and you know what and most of them I've interviewed and talked to them, they said, you know what, we thought it would go on forever. That's one of the standard statements I get, and I said, you know what? Nothing goes on forever except eternal judgment or eternal joy. And I'm not trying to be quote-unquote religious. Jesus said it this way. And I can only quote him because it's his words that keep me sane. It's his words that keep me focused. What does it profit a man to gain the world and lose his soul? Again, Joe, you went on YouTube and you looked at the different YouTube videos of hell. You could have one or two people varying by degree and, let's say, seeing the same view of hell. But what's astonishing to me is that the central themes of hell are it's forever. And forever doesn't mean time. It means it is your continual state of existence in eternity in the most deplorable, hopeless, absolute, abject, painful, mentally, physically, and psychology, because you don't cease to be. See, a lot of people think when they die, they just, they just go be one with the universe. That'd be nice, kind of a nihilistic view, but it ain't that way. And so now that we're in the real world, people would better turn. And I think that this is the word that I would say to everyone is simply this: multitudes, multitudes in the valley of decision, for the day of the Lord is at hand. And people are going to have to make decisions. That's what David said the Lord impressed upon him the other night in prayer, David Langford. That's what Henry Groover said. The Lord gave him the message. The Lord basically said to me, Steve, from this point out, all that matters is souls. Because really, what can I do? What can I say? Do I need to write another book? No. What I need to do is to as many as received him. See, not everybody received Jesus. And it finally dawned on me, Doug, that not everybody is going to receive me. Jesus said they hated me without a cause. I said, well, Lord, if they hated you without a cause, then, boy, I'm in good company. And the point that I'm trying to say is this: the truth will always bring out the greatest resistance. Because when you come to the point where you no longer lie to yourselves or others, but more importantly to God, that point when you're done lying to God and blaming him for everything that went on in your life, when you don't realize the devil's been trying to take it, and he, by honoring your free will, has been putting roadblock in your life to be able to come to accept him, I'm telling you, Doug, the only thing that's going to move people off dead center is a miraculous intervention of the Spirit of the living God in their specific lives. Not a general move, a specific move. You know where it starts with? God, be merciful to me, a sinner. Jesus, come into my heart. I ask you to be my Lord and Savior. I ask you to teach me what it means to be a follower, and I repent, Lord, of all my sin. Somebody says, oh, that's just easy believism. No, that's just the beginning. That's the hardest decision anybody will ever make in their life, and it's the easiest, too. It's easy to make it, but once they make it, obviously, God will move heaven and earth. And I've said this before, Doug, we have lost track of eternity so that the only thing that matters is the immediacy of our current situation. In other words, am I fed? Am I having enough this or that? Are my needs met? Are my vacation requirements met? Vacation? Yep. I got news for you. The day of vacations are coming to an end.
Yep. Are my TV shows on? Am I having a good day? Am I feeling bad for myself? Am I, and that's part of it. The slothfulness.
Here's another one. I want to answer this one email on the air because I get this probably 25 times a week. Okay, in the event we do go to war, do you think we should do as Jesus did and allow the demons to kill us without a fight? Jesus did not allow anyone to kill him. He said, no man takes my life, I lay it down. Or do you think it's okay to take a life in this battle to protect family? Absolutely. Self-defense is a mandatory requirement of the Scripture. Paul said, if any man doesn't provide for his family, he's worse than an infidel. For God to deny self-defense would be to sanction suicide. And that's why, Doug, I believe a false, errant understanding of self-defense. Look, even the disciples had to sell their cloaks and buy a couple swords, okay? Paul had to travel with a sword. There were really bad people in Paul's day, but Paul determined nothing was going to stop him until God told him, Paul, your time's up, time to come home. And so, this thing about pacifists, I don't know if you guys saw the biggest story, I believe, was that the DHS has been partnering with churches, and the churches, especially, I think 20 black churches now, are asking their parishioners to turn in their guns, okay? Yeah. Well, I think one of the greatest crimes that has ever happened is that the idea of self-defense and personal responsibility have never been linked. I can tell you point blank that the idea is simply this. If the Second Amendment goes, you go. And somebody says, well, what are you going to do? I said, well, by the grace of God, I intend to resist evil. Do I believe that I can overcome a hellfire missile from a drone? No, but Jesus can. And until I'm done, they can't take me with a hellfire missile or a sniper's bullet, or in your case, Doug, blowing up your car, or in my case, sending teams from Buffalo. The point is that we have a destiny to fulfill, because God is not going to basically allow the total taking out. Jesus wasn't allowed to be killed. They tried to kill Jesus so many times before the crucifixion, but when the crucifixion time came, Jesus was in the Garden of Gethsemane asking the Lord to allow him, nevertheless, not to take the cup from him. See, every Christian I know that believes in the pre-tribulation rapture, which, by the way, I believe is the great deception, part of the great deception, because the thing is, those people were given a lie. They believe a lie. Now, what does a lie do when it's believed, okay? Number one, it gives the lie power over you. Number two, it changes your perspective. Number three, it causes you to let off your guard. Number four, it provides an unrealistic expectation. And number six, and maybe even number 6 and 7, is it gives you a hope that isn't real, and it gives you a disappointment when it fails. Now, I've never said that in that order before, because I've never dealt with that in that issue before. The issue with the rapture isn't to argue with me and give me your proof text, because I can give you as many as you give me. It's to take it to Jesus. It's to be faithful unto the end. Why does Jesus say, to them that overcome will I give a crown? Okay, well, it's different than overcoming. And by the way, you guys, the greatest slaughter in the history of modern-day Christendom was in China, when the Chinese Christians embraced the pre-tribulation rapture, and the prophets went around telling them not to worry, and guess what? They needed to worry. They needed to heed the words of the real ones. And as Watchman Nee said in his book, he said, it's that they failed to heed the true prophets of God and listen to the lies who promised them the easy way out. If someone tells you you're going to go through it tough, if they prepare you to go through it tough, it's like boot camp. It's like training. And that's what the churches have failed to do. That's why when God starts to judge, I'm telling you this, you couldn't get me within 100 yards of a church with a lukewarm pastor. I don't want to be there. I don't want to be there when the people finally figure out they've been lied to. I don't want to be there if God chooses in that specific instance, and I certainly wouldn't go there if a church is saying, turn in your firearms to be good citizens, What about citizens of heaven? What about having a responsibility to your fellow men to make a difference and to help them? And by the way, I'm no bleeding heart liberal. I'm probably the antithesis of that, but neither am I a neocon, a conservative, a Republican. Those words all make me vomit, because it's part of the same paradigm. It's two sides of an evil coin. And ladies and gentlemen, either get a death one way or death the other. And I like what somebody had a battle cry, no king but Jesus. That certainly doesn't make the liberals happy. But you see, everyone's looking for a political solution still. When I hear a Christian tell me they're Christian, then that they just can't wait for, the guy running against Obama to win, and even the Ron Paul people. I said, I love Ron Paul's stand on the economics. I was trained in the Austrian School of Economics. I read Rothbard. I read all of the different, even guys like Gary North and oh, good night, so many of them for so many years. But the point being is that we're in a time period unlike any other. Jesus said there's never been a time like it, nor would there ever be another time like it again. And except the days be shortened, there be no flesh alive. Yet for the elect's sake, those days are going to be shortened. That's why everybody turns, they go to work on Monday, and it seems like you jump from Monday to Friday to Sunday and just to go start the whole thing over. Where's the rest of the week? It's gone. Time is speeding up.
Absolutely. And Steve, I've been having this great deception. I've been thinking about this for the last 3 days. I can't stop thinking about it. I've been reading the Bible, and all I can think of, and you hit the key, or the political solution. So many people are sucked into that. Now we have people talking about, and this is for some reason what I've been hearing, the fall of the New World Order. If that were to happen, and certain people would come out and claim responsibility for that, and they would say, look, we took out the corruption, we took out the problems, come trust us. something like that. The blue beam rapture. People are talking about this everywhere. There's the New Agers out there, and they're everywhere, and they've infiltrated everything on the internet. And this is what they're.
Well, sure, and I want to tell everybody, I categorically renounce the whole Drake movement. I categorically renounce the whole Benjamin Fulford thing. And look, those guys have their opinions, but can I tell you something? As Paul Volcker said, the former head of the Fed, hell, son, we own them all. The point being is that they're still locked into a paradigm, and look, they want, can I tell you what everybody wants? They want peace without Jesus, because Jesus has his demands, and his demands are, number one, thou shalt have no other gods before me. If you guys even could, I think if any of us could get a true glimpse of the occultism in the White House, as of the occultism in the Illuminati, of the human sacrifice, even some of the Satanists that I've talked to over the years, even some of the ultimate Luciferians, they say, it still surprises us, Steve. And look, those guys talk to me. I'm not saying I carry on extensive conversations, but in times past when they have, he said, you Christians are too bloody dumb to understand. We're the ones behind abortion. I actually set them straight, and I said, no, you weren't. It was the fallen angels, but you're their offspring, so yeah, you can take claim for it in this generation. That is my answer, by the way. And the point is, they say they're just too dumb to see this is the ultimate sacrifice to Lucifer. That's why Hawk always says the Lucy sacrifice. That's what war is, you guys. War is the blood sacrifice of the Luciferian powers that be to their god of war. The Romans may have called him Mars, and the Greeks may have called him something else, and everybody else called but the bottom line, it's the same behind the scenes.
We're not going to stop being at war, are we? I mean, this is look, Syria. I mean, what's going on in Syria right now? I mean, just to put this in current context, Steve, we are essentially, as I said before, past the point of no return, but now we're going to be involved in Syria, which is going to bring in Russia and China. Obviously, that's unsustainable. All of this is going to come collapsing at one time, is it not? I mean, is this what you see?
Well, yeah, it is collapsing at one time. Come on, ladies and gentlemen. Look, here's the problem. If the churches have been warning about what's happening in the Middle East, now look, I have. There are others who have been. Some people have, on talk radio focused on the Illuminati, and Alex has had his focus. I've had mine. Hawk's had his. There are people that are on the radio for a long time, and I'm not just saying we're the only three guys. I'm just trying to make this quick. But the point is that it's fascinating to me is that, again, when I get that question you asked me from someone in the chat room, everything's normal. How in the universe, there we go, can they even make that statement with the fact that the nuclear emergency search teams are up? One faction of the government's trying to find them, the other faction of the government's trying to hide them. There's war in the heavens, there's war in our government, there's war in the military, there's war in the intelligence agencies, there's war in the church, there's war in the Catholic Church, there's war in the economy, there's war in the homes. Where can you go to be free from war? There's war on you even if you don't deny it, or if you don't acknowledge it. The people that just asked you that, what about the chemtrails? What about the water they're drinking? What about the food they're eating? Okay, this is something really important. The Russians, and this is something that Hawk said, Steve, remind the people of this. The Russians are here, I'm reading what he wrote, are here now in Konos, are doing great terror to soften up targets. If you don't know what great terror is, shut up and go learn what great terror is, and then you can address the subject. The number one goal is, sow fear, create agitation, and they're on time with one of the most likely attack windows in the Middle East. Notice the Middle East and what's going on here are simultaneous eruptions, threats, almost concurrently happening in real time. And then he says now that Russia and Red China have put up to 90,000 troops into Syria and have all their nuclear weapons in Tartus and Latakia, as well as the new Panzer missiles and super sunburns they brought into Syria. Let me talk about super sunburns. Nobody was even talking about those when Hawk and I were talking about them. Basically what that means, you guys, is every single nuclear aircraft carrier up until a certain point was ultimately vulnerable. The Iranian military plan for our aircraft carriers, and all 8 are out to sea, by the way, now, is to basically overwhelm them with Sunburn missiles launched from high speed, and I want to share this, high speed, what most people would consider, Bahama racing boats, their version of them, and simply overwhelmed with superior numbers. And like one general from Special Operations told me, he said, look, I can handle 100 missiles, I can handle 200 missiles, but I can't handle 3,000 missiles, okay? And that was 3 or 4 years ago he told me that. And guess what? The headline right now is, Iran states, we will conquer the world, and especially Israel, with our overwhelming missile superiority. They're not just empty boasters, okay? Now listen, they're all ready for all-out World War III. That's the title of the show. You know, it's funny, Doug, as prophetic as it is, so I would say this, no matter what I would speak about, and I'm not, look, it's just like when Jesus said, get thee behind me, Satan, he was serious. I could talk about anything, and immediately someone would rise up, and out of their personal or out of their demonically inspired or controlled catalyst, they would say, well, I don't think, or I don't believe, or blah, 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 everything's fine, okay? Yeah, everything's fine for them. Tell that to the people in Syria right now. Tell that to the people in Iraq. Tell that to the people in Chernobyl that still have children that are so deformed that they have to put them in institutions because it makes them vomit to look at their own kids. Oh, and by the way, did you see the news on Fukushima 4? The pool's dry. When Fukushima, the fact is that there should be massive requests from every, and here's the point, every reliable mainstream news media for the truth on Fukushima. There is no such thing. When the truth becomes known to the American people, when you know you're going to die and you're backed into a corner, you have no other choice but to lash out and fight. And the day is coming, Doug and Joe, and I believe we're talking a very near term, don't know when, but we're talking a absolute debacle that literally the scripture will be filled. Even in the skeptics' ears, sudden destruction come on like a travail comes upon a woman with child. The Spetsnaz here, they're turning up all their emplacements of nuclear weapons. And again, if you don't understand what Spetsnaz is, I will spell it. S-P-E-T-S-N-A-Z, okay? You know what their goal is? You can go look it up on Wikipedia. They are assassins. They are trained to blow up dams, bridges, oil refineries, chemical plants, military bases, and then the good news for all the traitors on the blue list, they get to go and tap you. Tap is a euphemism for assassinate you. The satellite launch from Canaveral last Friday of a new spy satellite, maybe the old one got shot down. And what about all of the, quote, meteors? Or what about the people that are reporting F-16 fighters taking on red fireballs? If it was just a meteor, would they take on with an F-16? I don't think so. That's literally today in the Midwest. So all these things are no longer just discontinuous. It's not like the old. Do you remember, you guys, the old magazines called True and Argosy?
Oh yes, I do.
True.
Yep.
Yep, that was kind of like the official talk radio version in printed form. Okay.
Yep.
I can remember reading True and Argosy because it was about adventure, it was about giants, and it was about strange civilizations and blah 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 blah. Now all that stuff is coming into the forefront, and it's coming in so loud and clear, and it's like all the things that have been hidden or hidden away from people now are being brought out. And I mean, it's like I can tell the switch is turning on some now, but I'm just praying that it would turn on more. So, you know, we have to work while it's yet day. And if anybody hasn't seen the photo that's on my website, please go and look at the photo of the day. Never have I had such a positive response to the photo of the day. Did you see it, Doug?
I have not yet, Steve, no.
Have you seen it, Joe?
No, I have not.
Okay, would you guys at least do this at the break? Will you go look at it? What it is, it's probably the biggest storm that I've ever had to the west of me. It's taken off my deck in Montana. Yet there was a giant column of light, like a glorious, and I mean, when you see it, I don't think anybody's ever seen it like this, and I just photographed it off my deck with my 22-megapixel camera, and for the record, I don't know how to do Photoshop. I don't have Photoshop, so it's not Photoshop, but it's the most striking photo I think I've ever posted from response. Now, look, you need to understand that if you'll take a look at that, it will be the most encouraging thing. And this is the caption, okay? It's like a spotlight of God's glory shining through incredibly dark clouds. So please, ladies and gentlemen, go take a look at this because it'll be gone tomorrow. And I put through the caption, even though darkness descends upon the United States, Jesus is the light that shines through the darkness. He is the light of the world. And I felt like when I saw that, I said, Lord, listen, I'm a photographer. I was out today shooting aerial pictures, you guys. I shoot 500 to 700 pictures when I'm out shooting photos, okay? But I've never had a photograph like this in my entire life. And I thought, how cool is God? How amazingly redemptive, how spectacularly wonderful that a photo like that reminded me that it's going to get dark, Steve, but never forget who the light of the world is. So please, ladies and gentlemen, go and look at that photo. It will only be up tonight. Tonight is, what is tonight? July 1st, whatever time it is in Montana, 8:54. 10:54 Eastern, but please look at that photo. I have never had the response, Doug, and that's why I want you guys to see it. If you want to see an example of one picture being worth more than 1,000 words, this is the picture to look at. Again, I feel it was a gift from the living God to show people, to remind them, sure, the storm's coming, forgive me, the storm is here, but guess what? I'm beyond the storm, I'm in control of the storm, and I'm the light of the world. Everybody's in darkness. I'll tell you what, the Scripture promises, when you got Jesus, it doesn't matter how dark it is, because Jesus isn't like the ever-ready bunny, okay? Jesus is like the light of the world, and He will not leave His people in darkness. That's why it's safe to trust Him. I tell you what, don't put your trust in man, me or any man. Put your trust in Jesus. He's the only one who can keep His end of the bargain up, even when we let Him down. And Doug, please go look at that. And can we take a break?
Yeah, in fact, we are up against the top of the hour, and I just posted the link to that photograph in the chat room.
Yeah, I'm looking at the photograph now. It's beautiful.
It's you know what?
It's amazing.
You cannot even describe it. It's just unbelievable. Folks, you're listening to the Hagman and Hagman Report on this very special Sunday edition. Our very special guest is Steve Quayle. We're going to be right back after about 3 minutes of messages. Stay tuned, please.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the special Sunday broadcast. Today, this Sunday.